We are recording, now you know. My name's Lexi Wager. I'm the Community Relations Manager at the Land Trust. Welcome to the 15th Annual Conservation Breakfast. This event is an opportunity to bring together this amazing group of people and celebrate our love for this incredible place that we call home while also visioning our shared future. We're really honored to be here today on Jamestown S'Klallam tribal land at the beautiful brand new Dungeness River Nature Center. And I'd like to give a warm welcome to Lonnie Greninger, Vice Chair of the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribal Council, who will open our gathering this morning.
Mansanuhatning, can you hear me okay? Wonderful. Well, I squatchy siam nischayacha siam yuchsia and snatch statislam nuskayamson tenasna Lonnie Greninger Mansanuhatning Mansanatian sana ihatning sanatian sahla. Friends and relatives, honored friends and relatives, my name is Lonnie Greninger. My Indian given name is Yuchsia, and it means inviter in Nuskayamutsan, and I love that about my name. It was given to me when I was 15 by my grandmother, Quilsid or Elaine Grinnell. And this morning, it is an honor and a privilege to be in your presence in person, and also for those online this morning, welcome, welcome, welcome. Ending a work week in this way is a good way to end the week, isn't it? Yes. I was walking in from my car through the parking lot, and did anyone else notice just the sweet smell of the air? Spring is here, it's coming. I love that. I love being able to experience, be able to experience nature with all of my senses. And that includes that spiritual sense too, that the culture of my people being connected to this land has as well. And I know that you all have those connections to this land. And so you know what I mean when I talk about those smells that just bring you such joy. Maybe it brings up memories, good memories. So I'm just really glad to be here with you to celebrate some really monumental work that we get to talk about in river restoration today. And just having you be here with us in our buildings on our land next to our river, which I had to look up the name of our river in Nuskayamutsan, and I'm going to read it off of my phone here because it was a lengthy name from my ancestors. The name for the Dungeness River and the area of the mouth of it, so this large area here, Nahnayat Auch. Nahnayat Auch. It's just beautiful when you hear it in the ancestral language, isn't it? So when we are here celebrating the river restoration, what it does for us now, what it did for us then, what it's going to do for us in the future and the future generations that are going to be using this, the future of the salmon people and their generations, the future of the eagle and their generations. This is a good day to be here to celebrate and to listen to what we have to do, how we work hard, right? We work hard together to make this happen. So I want to be able to open up with a song for this event, and it's a paddle song that was given to me in a dream a couple years ago. And it's called Paddle Strong. And if you know anything about being in one of those heavy cedar canoes, it takes about 14 people and a skipper, and all pulling or paddling in the same pace to make it move forward, correct? Otherwise, you're just spinning in circles. So when you hear this song, it's supposed to be call and response. And since I'm only one person, I'll just explain it a little bit. The first shout out comes from the skipper. And he or she would say, EM East, which is pull hard, paddle hard. And then the next verse is the response from all the skipper or all the pullers in the canoe, which is Nuskayam hiats, which is S'Klallams, pull strong, S'Klallams, let's go. So as you're hearing those words, just imagine that call and response of everyone pulling at the same pace and everyone shouting to each other in encouragement as we work together in unity for a common purpose, which I believe is what happened for this river restoration. So that theme of unity, coming together, moving forward together. So with that, the S'Klallam paddle song.
everyone. Thank you so much, Lonnie, for your beautiful welcome and blessing this morning. I'd like to start today with the Land Trust land acknowledgement. North Olympic Land Trust works to conserve lands that are on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Indigenous people who have lived on the North Olympic Peninsula since time immemorial and who continue to lead us in environmental stewardship. In what's now called Clallam County, that's the S'Klallam people, Makah people, and Quileute peoples. We expressed our respect and gratitude to the tribal elders and members for their enduring principles of reciprocity, care, and protection of the North Olympic Peninsula, and for teaching us about this place. We're deeply appreciative of our relationships with the sovereign tribes of the peninsula and commit to working together to protect these lands and habitats for all future generations. Recognizing the negative impacts of colonization on tribes' access to traditional lands and culture, we strive to understand this damage and support tribes' cultures and ways of living. We're grateful to this land, these rivers, the Salish Sea, and the Pacific Ocean for their benevolence and their beauty. We recognize that we benefit by conserving and stewarding these places alongside the tribes that call the peninsula home and have cared for it since millennia. Every tribe has their own history, culture, geographical range, and language, and we encourage you to do your research about the many tribes of the Olympic Peninsula. Thank you so much. All right, we're gonna get started with today's presentation. So I'm pretty new to this organization. I don't know a lot of you here in the room, but you have all gotten my emails. So it's really been a pleasure for me to create this space for our community to gather and to bring back this beloved event. This is our first time having Conservation Breakfast back in person since 2019. And folks who are familiar with it might notice it looks a lot different than it used to. We're a little later in the day, the fair is a little lighter, and we're in a smaller venue. That being said, we're really excited to partner with the River Center. This location ties so well with the theme of today's gathering, talking about river restoration and being here on the Dungeness. Randy, are you still planning on doing a walk after with folks? Okay, great. So Randy Johnson, who's one of our presenters today, is going to be giving a short guided walk of the floodplain restoration that's happened recently just outside the River Center here, immediately after the program for guests that are interested. I also want to note that we had overwhelming interest in today's event, and there's a... Yeah, we'll meet on the porch for that, sorry. We had overwhelming interest for today's event, and there's a lot of people that wanted to be here and couldn't, and a lot of them are online. Please note to those online that we wish you were here in person with us, and we're planning for a larger venue next year so we can try and make that happen. We appreciate all of you riding this wave with us and going through all of these changes as we learn to navigate these spaces again. So thank you for coming here today, and thank you to those that are online. We're also really excited to serve you some delicious local goods. Pastries are from Pane de Amore, and then there's beverages from Goodness Teas as well as Hurricane Coffee. Please feel free to continue to help yourself to those goodies throughout the presentation. We're also really excited that we tried to minimize waste generated today. Any of the leftovers are going to be donated to local food recovery organizations, including the Port Angeles Food Bank and the Port Angeles chapter of Food Not Bombs. You'll also notice that you have reusable plates and napkins. We have a disposal station set up on the back wall by the door, and everything is labeled back there. And we also have a wonderful volunteer, Diana, in the blue long sleeve shirt that can help you sort your waste. I also saw a lot of you brought your own mugs today, so thank you for helping us further minimize waste. I want to recognize that it took a really big crew to put today together. And I'm really grateful for the power of our volunteers and the sponsors that make our work happen. I'd like to just take a second and give a round of applause to the folks who are volunteering for us, as well as our sponsors who are up on the screen. Thanks, everybody. Over the next hour, we're gonna hear some stories of some really amazing work that's happening by multiple groups in our community. We're going to give out our 10th Outstanding in the Field Award. We're going to hear from Tom about what us Land Trust folks have been up to, and also have a chance to raise some funds in support of our shared future. We're hoping to gain a few more evergreen donors today, and those are folks that contribute monthly to the Land Trust. You'll actually see many of them around the room. They've got a fun little evergreen tree silhouette on their stickers, so make sure to say thank you and hi if you pass by them. I want to get a quick feel of the room today. We're gonna do a little hand raise game. Raise your hand if you own a conservation easement. Thank you for your commitment to local conservation. Raise your hand if you're a land trust volunteer. Thank you for your commitment to local conservation. Raise your hand if you have donated to the land trust. Thank you all so much. All right, last but not least, raise your hand if this is your first time at Conservation Breakfast. Welcome to the Land Trust community. Everybody make sure to say hi to these folks and give them a warm welcome today. So I'm going to do a quick intro to the Land Trust for those who are new to us. North Olympic Land Trust is a community-based organization whose mission is to conserve the lands and natural resources that continue to be the bedrock of our culture, economy, and way of life. Since 1990, we've worked with communities and partners, including a lot of you here in this room and tuning in online, to permanently protect over 3,900 acres in Clallam County. You've all done some really amazing things over the years. We live in a really amazing place and still have the opportunity to steward this place to maximize its economic, ecologic, and social potential. And this investment is intended to pay back to us in dividends by upping our quality of life. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to our Executive Director, Tom Sanford.
Thank you, Lexi. As we all know, the process of pulling together something like this is incredibly intense. And Lexi, for someone who's just come on board, just a huge, huge thank you for what you've done today. I'll start with that anyway. Wow, this is so incredible to get a chance to be in front of all of you. So again, my name is Tom Sanford. I'm the Executive Director with North Olympic Land Trust. Had the honor to work on your all's behalf for the past 10, we just hit 11 years being able to help really, what can we do together to take the things we love about this place and make sure they're a part of this place forever. And there are some things we can accomplish with great things like zoning, comprehensive planning. There are other things that we come through with big county projects and directions we had, or the leadership of the tribe and this partnership. The land trust role, we end up really focusing on some really key specific properties that we know are really important to the long-term power of this place and helping them. Things related to your local farms, your local fish habitat, your local forests, your open space. And so I just wanted to give you a real quick sense of what's going on these days in the Land Trust, and then get out of the way because there is a panel we have today to talk about the Lower Dungeness levee setback that has an exciting story to tell. So over the last year, those of you that pay close attention to your property tax bill will notice a new, very small line item on there called Conservation Futures. Thank you, Commissioner Ozias and the other commissioners of the county. We now have a new tax. It's a small group where you get to say that. This very small tax is funding of taking our collective power and bringing it together toward long-term conservation. Thank you to Rebecca Mahan, who's now overseeing this Conservation Futures program. It is going to help double the pace of farmland conservation in this community, especially when coupled with some brand new funding from the Floodplains by Design program that Randy Johnson and Hansi Hulls and the Jamestown Sklallam tribe helped bring together that we'll hear about in a moment. The money's coming. We need our local support, helps leverage it, but we have some really great funding, and it's allowed us to move from a pace of about 1 farm a year. So this year, there have already been 2 farms permanently conserved in Clallam County. In January, Mid-Valley Farm, which is the, oh, that doesn't work. Yeah, that's right. The screen is so great that you aim a laser at it and it eats it up. So 55 acres of Mid-Valley Farm across the street from Sunland is now permanently protected, thanks to you and these other new funding sources. That was the 24th farm conserved in Clallam County. And the 25th farm occurred last Monday, Patty, right? Working with Patty McManus, Nash's Organic Produce. And this 10 acres here, you may know as the Nash's Packing Shed. What we're so excited about conserving these 10 acres is this permanently protects the refrigeration, the distribution, the ability of getting our food out to market. And so that was just formalized a week ago and is your 25th farm in Clallam County to be permanently protected. So it's already here, and that was already in, what's April. In addition, I'm very excited to move, moving away from farmland into some habitat work. It has been such an honor over these recent years to be learning so much more about the power of prairies. And in this community, if you go back, and we'll hear about this more in a little bit, you go back prior to the farm arrival, and prairies were the keystone species of the area we're in right now. And they were well managed. They were managed by fire, they were managed by gathering, and were an important food source for this community, specifically species like camas. There is an effort underway trying to see what we can get back of some of these remaining prairies to actually exist. And I'm really excited that right now this is prairie creation in the works. We're in the process of, this is at our Lyre Conservation Area at the mouth west of Port Angeles. And also there's the Lyre, and also in Squim Dungeness, covering up the grasses, killing the grasses. And behind that, we know, one, there's a bit of a seed bank already in these places. So you pull back these tarps after you've killed the grasses, some of the seed returns. Well, we're also gonna do some planting and working to return some of these prairies. And so I'm not gonna talk a lot about it today. We're gonna get some results first, but I did wanna say a huge thank you to Courtney, who is on our team and overseeing all of this. And many of you have been out as a part of these crews. I think, Mike, I think the paper got a phone call wondering who was out there with metal detectors trying to figure out what was happening on this property. They were weed whackers, and it was the process of clearing things so we could get these tarps down and start to return some prairie. I also know many of you have been working on the Oak Project just north of Carrie Blake Park, also part of that larger effort. And right here at this property is some prairie restoration in the works with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. In the next months ahead, you should be expecting our property in 2024. Our property at Clallam River is going to be open to the public out to the west, and we're in the process of doing that next to the Clallam River State Park, Clallam Bay State Park, sorry, and the county park that's down there as well. So all of that is in the works. And also, we're doing some work at our Kalawa Conservation Area, Elk Creek Conservation Area, and some restorations getting additional trails and open to the public in those amazing spots. I'm also excited that other habitat restoration projects are in the works. This also includes a project on the Elwha that is looking at some of the most important salmon habitat remaining on the Elwha River that is not permanently protected and helping to make that happen. Meanwhile, we're making sure that climate change is at the forefront of every choice the organization is making. Thanks to the Land Trust Alliance, Sustainable Path Foundation, a partnership with Jefferson Land Trust, where I serve on their board, they serve on our board. We're together making sure we understand things like where are the high value corridors for animal migration in the area as we select places to be working, and are those likely to remain in a world of climate change? Carbon sequestration opportunities. And these two maps I think are fascinating. If I can not trip. The top one is showing, it takes just a little explanation. What that one shows is the first date of freeze on average. And so if it's bright red, that first day of freeze is like December. If it's blue, it's more like September. So right up in the mountains on the top, the first day of freeze is in September, and at the coast, it's later. Well, what you see with just a little bit of a change in temperatures is a lot less freezing in the lowlands. And you start to think about ripple effects of that on pests, on wildlife, on crops, on flood regimes, all these different pieces. We have to keep those kinds of things factored into the planning as we move forward. So with that, then, those were just a few things I wanted to share. There's a much longer story I could give, but we also really want to value your time and also bring up our presenters for what we think is really going to be an exciting presentation this morning to hear about the changes that we've been seeing down in the Dungeness River. So Hansi and Randy and Kathy, why don't you come up and I can do a little introduction and away we go. Well, apologies for sitting. Hopefully people can see us, but it hopefully works well. We'll see what happens here. First off, it's a real honor to be up here and a part of this. One second. And a part of this group. What do you think? Okay, to be up here and a part of this group, and what you have with us today is Hansi Hals. Hansi leads the Dungeness River, and actually the entirety of the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe's Natural Resources Department. Randy Johnson, who is a fisheries biologist and habitat restoration lead for the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe, and Kathy Lear, ecologist and wildlife ecologist with the county, who also has been the lead on Dungeness River levee setback work. And our hope today is really just to have a conversation for the next half hour and to give you a sense of what's happened over this time and what are the changes we've seen, what's coming up ahead, trying to really focus on the longer history and its impacts on all species, human and habitat. And to go from there. I'm going to look at my notes really quick to make sure I didn't forget anything in my introduction. I did want to note that there are a couple elected officials here today who have also played a really big role in this, and you may have questions about things that they can also help with. Bruce Emery, with the director of the Department of Community Development at the county, and our most newly elected DCD director. Welcome, Bruce. And also Marco Zayas, County Commissioner. And they are the folks really making some really important decisions about this project and the future, and are good resources to know. So with that, I just want to give you all a really quick introduction and a little history. Oh, wrong way. So if you go back to the last glaciation, what you saw is as the glaciers retreated, the Dungeness River really has taken a lot of different channels. And back 7,000, 6,000 years ago before present, it was coming out in the area that's now through what's now Bell Creek and coming out in the area of Washington Harbor. It eventually headed up towards Gearing Creek for a while, came out right at Port Williams, then Gearing Creek, up out of Casselary, and then eventually has settled by the time Europeans arrived on the scene. It was heading out about where it is now, even using the Meadowbrook Creek, the little side channel out there at Meadowbrook Creek. And you can see that's really formed this ecosystem. It's also important to note that throughout that entire time, at least since last glaciation, human habitant here managing the landscape, living in reciprocity with the landscape, and in that process, nourishment from and with the landscape. And so there gives you an idea of today and those longer channels. So what we then saw was in the 1850s or so, the beginning of European arrival and settlement throughout the area and changing a lot of this area. Farms started to arise. Many of these prairies are what became farmland. And that has become the food that's kept this community living, and also was a big change. And over time, as that food, eventually it was realized that those levees were really, the river was sometimes getting in the way of that food production. And there were some big floods that happened, and 2 levees got created. And well, a series of levees were created along the river, and specifically down in the lower Dungeness area that came in 1963 and 1964 period by the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Beebe family are the 2 places that were down in the lower part of the river. We have 2 microphones, look out. Oh.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. When the Europeans arrived on the scene, the Dungeness River, just like many Northwestern rivers, was unconfined and was very complex. And by complex, I mean there were side channels and there were lots and lots of log jams. It was sort of like having a garden hose just running into a nice thick lawn. Water could spread out, had lots of roughness. It couldn't flow very fast through that. And it was benevolent, and it created a salmon utopia. The settlers, like Tom mentioned, they changed the landscape pretty dramatically. One of the first things that happened was they cleared the log jams out of the river so that they could, for one reason, so that they could drive logs down the river. There was quite a market for pilings. This was in the 1800s. So they cleared the logs out of the river, and then log jam removal became viewed as an important flood control measure. And up until 1982, Clallam County Public Works every year would go down the river with heavy equipment and clear out every stick of wood they could find and put it on the river bars and burn it. Then levees were constructed, and you went from the benevolent river to something more like this garden hose and the salmon wasteland that we see in much of many stretches of the river today. So the river in many places is confined and simplified. Levees that were built, the legacy of log jam removals. But what's a reference condition for what salmon habitat could look like that would be productive? And that is the one on the right here, the unconfined, complex river that has incredibly high salmon productivity, whereas the one on the left is really a salmon wasteland. This was the levee system that the tribe and the county and the land trust and other partners collaborated to move away from the river, to unconfine the river, which was about a project that was approximately 25 years in the making. That's how long I worked on the project, and it addressed the core levee from the schoolhouse bridge to its upper end, which is 1.9 miles.
You ready? Hi, everybody. So in the late 80s and 90s, it was abundantly clear that we needed more information and we needed a lot of coordination and cooperation among ourselves at the local and state level. A joint resolution was created by the Board of County Commissioners and Jamestown's Clallam Tribal Council to create what is known as the Dungeness River Management Team. First started in 1988, thinking about the flows, low flows and aquatic life, and high flows and flood conditions. So the Dungeness River Management Team distinguished itself in two ways. I mean, it's distinctive in so many great ways, but really that comprehensive understanding, doing the assessments and the scientific inquiry, those technical studies being the backbone for plans and recommendations. And the second thing was collaboration. bringing everybody who wanted to be or needed to be at the table for these water resource management issues at the table and striving for consensus. That cooperative approach and resulted in solutions for water resources. And we see Governor Gary Locke here awarding the Water Users Association on behalf of the irrigators, state award. The lower one is a national award. Many other awards have been received. And in the true spirit of the Dungeness River Management Team in the mid-1990s, a subgroup of fisheries biologists from the federal government, state government, tribal government, county government, all came together, and over a few years, they went through all those comprehensive assessments and what they each knew individually about the river, and they came up with what do we need to do to recover salmon. And there were 7 pillars that were described. We'll go into one of these is what we've really concentrated on with this project. So our scientific inquiry and assessments are all local, but also reaching out and understanding what other folks know. And this floodplain connectivity that Randy kind of introduced to us, why is that so important? For the young fish that are constrained to the main channel, they've got to spend a lot of energy just keeping up with the river. And if you're connected to the floodplain and you have this refugia to get out into the quiet waters, you can spend your energy growing, and there's a difference you can see from this study. And scientists also know that those larger outmigrating smolt, when they hit the marine water, they're able to have better survival. So here we are looking at the project area of the pillar number 1, which I'm just going to read from my notes. Thank you for your patience. Pillar number 1 was to reestablish functional floodplain in the lower 2.6 miles through dike management and constriction abatement. We're looking at about river mile 1.5 to the mouth here. And in the early 2000s, there was yet another group. So really the cooperative approach cannot be overemphasized here. There was another group to think about, okay, how do we do it? What will it look like if we go ahead and try to set back this levee? Where does it go? Who are the landowners there? The Dungeness River Management Team has always been aware that we've got private land ownership in the lower part of the river. So we need public involvement and willing landowners. A vision was created in the early 2000s, and this generally predicts or depicts what that vision would be late succession, like after a long time. And here we're looking at about that 2.6 mile mark going north. And, recognizing that private landowner and different visions, what are the possibilities? And clustered development, it was certainly on the table. And what we are very lucky is that we found, whoops, sorry, Kathy. Is that we found a shared vision where we were able to recover floodplain and have retained agricultural lands. The levee setback line, the alignment for where to set it back, was informed by current land topography, just what's the elevation, and flood modeling so that we could understand where do we expect floodwaters to be.
Hi, everyone. As Hansi and Randy had mentioned, we've all been working together in this section of the river. And I just want to reiterate what Lonnie said about paddling together. It just takes so many people working in concert to make these visions a reality. So in this photo, we are looking north along the lower part of the Dungeness River. And what we started doing early on was working with willing landowners to purchase property in order to be able to move houses and barns and other infrastructure and create space for the river when the time came. And this is one of the efforts that was near the schoolhouse. You can see the schoolhouse in the lower photo. Sometimes we would take a building down by hand if it was a historical structure. Sometimes we would just lock, stock, and barrel, pick it up and move it other places. Sometimes we just had to take things to the dump. It depended. But anyway, at one point we were able to take care of the buildings. Permitting took a very long time for the north end of the project. And that's all I'll say about that.
So this puts us then to being right about in the early 90s, I think, or no, I'm sorry, early 2000s was when the permitting really begins, and it keeps on going. And meanwhile, could you just go to the next slide? Thank you. In the meanwhile, this was in late 2018. So you see, we just did a pretty big jump in time because there's a lot of getting ready that's going on. In late 2018, as the county was getting ready to do everything in that northern section that you see what was the plan, you've already seen that before, the land trust got approached by a landowner. This is a part of the Hunt family, a longtime pioneer family that had this deep desire to keep their land and farmland and an open space, what they called their river property. But at the same time, there were like 20 different heirs that now had pieces of ownership on this property and all these kinds of things, and they all agreed. So that came with well, how to buy it from you. Full market value, we'll just figure out how to buy it. So you're made whole, and the land trust and the tribe are together going to buy this. This picture is helpful because it shows that southern property and what its subdevelopable potential was, as Hansi also showed in that slide Randy did with all the homes in the field. That might have been a small exaggeration, but not much. No, Randy says, okay. And so what ended up happening is we said, in 2018, we made this slide and said, can we instead do this? Can we take what's Dungeness Valley Creamery today in that area and get even more levee setback following the Dungeness River Management's Blue Book plan and do this additional 64 acres? And what do you know? This community came together. We, together with some funding brought in by the tribe and the land trust, with a lot of community fundraising and extreme generosity from Sound Community Bank and a very borrower-friendly terms on a loan, bought that 104 acres and we're able to start doing some land swaps, start getting the right ownerships in the right places. And at the end of the day, what you're going to see then is Dungeness Valley Creamery now owns the entirety of that conserved farmland. It is twice the size of their farm. It's now 100% protected. They've been able to double their business in so many ways and diversify their business and keep a strong local farm in place, while at the same time, that 64 acres is now owned by the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe with a levee that we're about to hear about that will be there for the community to walk and enjoy forever, while also really encouraging habitat's return. And so again, that's a thank you to people in this room who 250 donors raised $400 and some thousand in 3 months. And I think I may have had some surgery in the middle of that time. And I was amazed. You got a good project, this community can come together, right? So back to you, Randy. Oh boy, I hurt my back this morning, sorry.
In 2020, the tribe purchased that 65 acres that Tom identified. And we immediately during the last part of 2020 and early 2021, we designed a levee setback project, a mile of levee setback, and got through the permitting, went out to bid, and by early July of 2021, we were constructing the setback levee that was going to replace the old time core levee that was built right on the banks of the river. By the end of September, that setback levee was essentially completed.
Can we time out for a second? They started in July, by the end of September, they built it. The James Town Tribe is really impressive.
Thank you. So we had a few tours out there with the governor came up, and then state legislators came up. Everyone was thrilled. Had this beautiful 10,000-year levee in place. The old levee could accommodate flows maybe to 25 years, 25-year flood before water would start coming over the top. It's really a miracle that it never completely just blew out. This one will accommodate the 10,000-year flood. So we bought the property in June of 2020. By October, the setback levee was complete. The old levee was still in place. We began reforesting the once and future floodplain. Of course, this had always been forest for probably close to 8,000 years anyway. This had been forest. 100 and some years ago, it was cleared for farmland. It made sense back in the day. And now it's being reforested and will be a floodplain forest once again. This is one of the narrower spots of the setback. It ranges from 400 to 800 and some feet. In this photo, the core dike had been removed. So this is the original River's Edge property that Tom spoke of that was such an incredible collaboration between NOLT, the tribe, the landowners, the funders. And then in about a year ago, the tribe began removing the old levee. Kathy.
So we, at the north end, of course, things were proceeding at a little different pace. We were in awe of the work that the tribe was doing. This is, I'll talk, yes, I'll talk about that in a sec. But here in this slide, what you're looking at is the removal of the core levee. And that became also a cooperative venture as time went on. The tribe was willing to remove the core levee also in the north area where the county was building the setback. And once again, I just want to reiterate that this was such a community effort over such a long period of time, decades. These are some of the many players in the work that we did. So at the north end, we were not working in recent pasture. We were working in a different kind of environment, but we were able to finally start construction. It was a big day for everyone. This is a culvert that's going in on the landward side of the levee. There's a little tributary there that we were helping. But the site was so wet. and we couldn't figure it out. And you can see, this is the driest part of the year. This is like late August, early September. And, you know, we should be just roaring around, but as you can see, the excavator is carrying a couple plates so that it can put the plates down to walk. And on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see someone working with a pump. So we were trying to figure out why it was so wet and why with pumps running 24/7, we still couldn't dry the site out. It turns out a family of beavers had moved in. We think we're pretty good at engineering, but we cannot hold a candle to these guys.
Which we want, just not yet.
Right, right. So this is the site we were working in, and our efforts to coexist were failing. So ultimately, we live trapped and relocated a 50-pound male upriver to this site, actually. And we don't know if he's staying up here forever. If he wants to move back home now, that's fine. We just needed him to take a break for a couple months. And we discovered that wildlife was with us the entire time. We'd constructed what we called the flood return channel, and the animals loved it. We could see signs of them. And Randy took this great photo, not only mammals and birds, but also fish liked it. Like within a couple of weeks of excavating the channel, these guys were in there spawning.
I would point out that if you can see the chum fin right in there, that is on top of what was a few weeks prior Town Road itself.
That's right. That's right. This is the Old Town Road roadbed that they decided to spawn in. I'm so glad Randy was there that day. We also were able, this is the Delher crew working here. We were able to find the historic outlet to one of the oxbows and take that down to grade, and it immediately reconnected itself with the river. And we took out Town Road. As you might remember, it bisected the floodplain. And as Tom mentioned, it immediately became habitat. What we found underneath the asphalt was 6,800 tons of contaminated material just from old road practices. You know, controlling dust, people put oil on the roads. It was a common practice. We've learned over and over again that some of what we thought were accepted practices are mistakes. This is for Huntsy, I think.
Quick time check in the room. Everyone doing okay? We're probably running maybe 10 long. Is that okay? Good. This is interesting. Good.
And I can be super fast here. This is just recognizing completed project with the legislators. And an overview of the project about River Mile 1.5 looking north, where the core levee had been and how close to the river it really was. Draw your eye to the river itself, and then Town Road, with the blue line being the final levee alignment. And there we go, just like that.
The county's project was tricky, and a huge, huge kudos to the county. What a tricky project it is.
It was very, very hard. The permitting slide and then the construction slide, all of those challenges. Jamestown has, in the lower part of this slide, there's some log jams that were installed. Oh, all good. So just drawing eyes to the log jams. And this is after some high floods. We had flows over 2,300 cubic feet per second this late fall and early winter, and the floodwater spread. We also know that we had many tens of Chinook reds in this reach of the Dungeness River. So that river channel, we didn't have that scouring high velocity that Randy had described earlier. It was fairly placid water when you went out and observed. And those little babies had an easier winter. So the vision, late successional, and as of just a couple months ago. And I did want to just note that because this project was so long in the making, we were able to do a lot of prep work. So in the early 2000s, when folks were thinking about where will that levee go, we we're also doing the land acquisition and a lot of background planting. And so there's some full-grown trees. We're not at late successional now, but we do have some pretty full-grown trees and great vegetation in the area. And this gives us the whole scale with the upper end. And I want to take a moment to, as Kathy has said, acknowledge all of the partners and the funders. So partners, we've recognized the county, the tribe, North Olympic Land Trust. State Department of Fish and Wildlife is both a landowner and helped with funding. Washington Department of Transportation is both an owner and helped with a lot of the planting in their area. Column Conservation District, the North Olympic Salmon Coalition. So through acquisition, design, construction, and our funding came federal government, the Pacific Salmon Treaty, through NOAA, Fish and Wildlife Service. Washington State had funding that came through the State Recreation Conservation Office, Salmon Recovery Funding, and Puget Sound Acquisition and Restoration Funds. And a shout out to our local North Olympic Peninsula lead entity for helping coordinate and secure that funding. Also through RCOs, the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program, they have a farmland preservation fund. Through Washington State Department of Ecology, Floodplain by Design. It's a fairly new funding program. It's amazing for this kind of work. Their whole idea is that floodplains should have and can have multiple benefits for a community. So reducing flood risk, having farmland, and the State Department of Natural Resources has an aquatic enhancement program. Tom recognized the Land Trust Alliance. There was a Pacific Northwest Resilient Landscape Initiative. Talk about a resilient landscape. And our local folks, thank you, everybody. There were 250 local donors, and Tom recognized the Sound Community Bank. I think that brings me to Randy.
So to wrap this up then, Randy wants to share, what are we seeing? It's only been a couple months, but what are we actually seeing in these floodplains now?
Well, the river can breathe once again. All the water that's spread out wide across the floodplain previously would have been confined to that narrow channel, be high velocity, be scouring out the salmon reds. Young salmon that would have been trying to rear in that main river channel would have been fighting these tremendous velocities. Now they're, I figure I'd do that at least one more time for the good of the order. And here it is at low flow. There's still water out there in the floodplain. Salmon are rearing in there. And up at the upstream river's edge, or the southern river's edge, as we're calling it now, which is not quite as actively connected to the river as the northern part that we've been looking at. The river is starting to make that connection. And this is a fairly modest high water, and water's getting out of the river channel, running down into the Oxbow. So it's all really starting to click very well. at the footprint of the core dike, many of you walked on for years. The engineers walking on the finished surface after the levee was removed. And then within two months after that upper photo was taken, the river had moved over and cut through there and created a side channel. This is little ways downstream on what had been the levee. Beautiful salmon habitat now in this reach. So these photos were taken from the same spot, pre-project and post-project, looking downstream. This is looking upstream from that same spot. You can see the old levee with the river churning away right outside of it with nowhere to go. And then in the upper right was right after the levee had been removed. And then the bottom one is after high waters had come through and begun reconnecting things. The upper photo is what that Oxbow reconnection that Kathy mentioned looked like before high waters had come through. And then this one with Huntsy wading across that. And this is at a pretty low river flow. A lot of waters running through that Oxbow, and it's absolutely fabulous salmon habitat back there. Kathy mentioned the wildlife, and you, who knows if this is the beaver that she moved up here to the nature center or not, but there's lots of beaver action out there. And I call it the instant American Serengeti. You walk down through there and there's so many ducks and signs of animals. It's just amazing. 150 years ago, this was salmon utopia. Then it wasn't, and now it is again. Thank you.
And so again, by way of introduction, Kathy Lear with Clallam County, Randy Johnson with the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe, and Huntsy Halls with the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe. Thank you for your leadership in what has become one of the biggest restoration projects happening in Washington State. And you think about the Elwha, you think about the Dungeness, these are places returning with some of their historic ecosystem function. Thank you all. Yeah. And so to wrap things up today, like I said, well, as Huntsy was saying, this is a process that has been going on for quite a while. In addition, this organization has been around for quite a while, 30 plus years. And in that time, about 10 years ago, actually exactly 10 years ago, we said, let's start giving out an award once a year to somebody in the community or some group in the community that really is outstanding in the field. This was Don Corson at Camaraderie came up with this title. You've seen other places, but the idea of these are folks working in the field of conservation that are outstanding, outstanding in their field. And so we have here on the North Olympic Peninsula some of the absolute most impressive conservation efforts and groups doing world-class work in this area of anywhere in the world. World-class in the world, there you go. And so so what we did was we started this in 2014 and past recipients, I just want to mention was 2014, the Jamestown S'Klallam Tribe Natural Resources Department, Jefferson Land Trust after that, Dick Goen, the Lower Elwha Clallam Tribe Natural Resources Department, which I was a representative of in the back there, the Clallam Conservation District, 2019 now is the North Olympic Salmon Coalition and their amazing work. beginning of COVID came, and we actually have some people we never got to thank in person, and one of them's here today. Our 2020 recipient with amazing photographer Pat O'Hara is here. Hey, Pat. Who, in my vision, is one of the most astounding photographers I've ever had the experience to be around. I am amazed by Pat's work. In 2021, we were able to honor Kayleen Cottingham as she was retiring as the head of the Recreation Conservation Office in Washington State that makes a lot of these things happen. She was the power bureaucrat behind it all. That was incredible. And then last year had the honor of honoring someone who's actually up in the Elwha today and wasn't able to be here, but his wife Kath is here, John Gussman, and his incredible photography and telling the story of this place. And this year, we chose to keep it a little bit of a secret of who we're honoring, but the hint has already been throughout the day. There has been a group here on the peninsula since 1988 that is a group of folks coming together as just let's figure this stuff out together. A group of people that provide the technical expertise and the collaborative expertise that are diverse. You end up with groups like City of Sequim, Clallam County, Dungeness River Nature Center, Olympic Peninsula, Audubon, Jamestown Sklallam Tribe, Washington Department of Ecology, river property owners, irrigation districts, water users, Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Land Trust, all these groups coming together to ask the hard questions about the future of the Dungeness River, come up with a plan, and in 1997, that's actually a fair time ago now, wrote a book that they didn't just though put on a shelf, they kept using to this day and became the inspiration of everything you just saw. And this group, obviously, is the Dungeness River Management Team. Dungeness River Management Team. They work on your behalf to help make this river do what it can. And so with great pride, I would like to introduce, well, again, Hansi Halls, who's currently the chair of the Dungeness River Management Team, to accept this award. Come on up, Hansi.
There are other DRMT members and alternates. Can you guys just stand up and come on over here, please? Just have a moment. Did Anne leave? Anne Soul was here. Okay, all right. Well, congratulations, everybody.
Yeah, so congratulations, Joe. Anything you want to say?
You guys have already heard from me.
So I know we're a little bit short on time, but again, congratulations to the Dungeness River Management Team for all of your great work on behalf of this river in this place. Thank you. And with that, I'd like to pass the baton over to our second to last person to say just a few words. We know about your passion for this place, and one of the ways that happens is through the generosity of your pocketbooks. We never want to be aggressive in that, but we also don't want to take away the opportunity. And with that, I introduce to you Alex Wilson.
Thank you, Tom. Let me just put that there. Thank you so much. I'm already running a timer so that I won't make us go more over than we already are. I first want to say thank you so much for coming. It's actually, for many of you, the first time I've had an opportunity to see you one-on-one, and I've been able to finally make that connection. So wonderful to see you, and thank you all so much. Again, I'm the development director here at the Land Trust. So if you have any questions about fundraising or ways to support us in that way, business sponsorships, what have you, talk to some foundations today and everything, please feel free to reach out to me. I am just so incredibly proud to work for this organization and support the incredible work we're doing. For me, rivers are really kind of a passion for me. And so it's really exciting to just learn more about Dungeness River and the other river work that we're doing across the entire peninsula. So thank you all so much for helping to support all of that. Want to call it a special thank you to our Evergreen supporters. Again, just look for that insignia on those name tags. Those are folks who are giving to us on a monthly basis, which is really, really helpful to us. We can predict what we're getting from our donors and really be able to plan for the future with those monthly donations and really leverage that support, as Tom was talking about, with government foundations and such. So really, really a great way to support, but also Evergreen isn't for everybody, and we understand that. If you're at all interested in donating, I'll cut right to the chase. It's pretty simple. Today, we've made it even easier. There's envelopes in your programs. You can use those and you can mail them right back to us if you'd like to, or hand them to people with official name tags, and they've got yellow vests on as well. And those folks can receive your donations. If you'd prefer to at home, you can go to northolympiclandtrust.org. You'll see an orange donate button, and you can click right on that. And it will take you to our donate page. And you can from there select if you'd like to be a monthly donor or one-time donor. And in addition to that, we offer memorials and honorariums too. And then there's just one other way, and we won't go through the exercise together because of a time crunch, but if you were interested, you can text to the number 44321, 44321. We won't do that together. The word Evergreen. Think about Evergreen support, monthly support, and that will send your phone a link that you can click on from there, and it will go right to a donate page. So it's just one more avenue. But really the simplest way is envelopes. You've already got them in your hands, and northolympiclandtrust.org, and click the donate button. And again, I really want to say thank you all so much for the incredible community support. We simply just could not do this without you. And I don't just mean dollars. I mean volunteering. I see so many volunteers here, and so grateful for that. So thank you. And with that, over to Lexi.
Thank you, everybody, for sticking around as we went over time. I hope you leave today feeling really inspired and hopeful about the amazing things that are happening in our community. I once again want to thank our presenters, our staff, and all of our volunteers for making today happen. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you want to hear more from Randy, he'll be meeting out on the back patio there in just a few moments to talk about some of the river restoration here. I do want to put a bug in your ear too. Our annual family picnic is coming up again this summer. That's going to be the last Sunday in July 30th at Olympic Cellars, and we hope we'll see you there. Last but not least, our volunteers are going to start cleaning up and putting things away, but we're not kicking you out. Feel free to hang out and socialize as things go on around you. But that's all for today. Thank you so much for supporting local conservation, and I hope this was a good way to kick off your Earth Day weekend.